Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be redesigning Frankie Stein. So, to start off with, I decided to go ahead and block out the main shapes of the creature and of the bride as well. And then I decided to move on to Frankie's body, since I definitely wanted to play around a lot more with this than just stitches on the skin. I wanted to have a sort of mismatch of different parts that had not only different skin colors, but different body types as well. And I also wanted there to be a limb difference where one leg is a little bit longer than the other, which is not only good representation wise, but it's also good fashion design wise, because then that means you have one heel and one flat-footed sole. And here I was deciding to block out the stitches that I wanted to do for their body. This is just sort of how I typically draw the stitches, and I also wanted to take some inspiration from sort of a more anatomical dissection-like stitch pattern, and then blend those two together to have something that is a little bit more novel than what I usually do, to make it a true redesign than just sort of repackaging what I've been drawing for the past few years. Then I'm just sort of blocking out here which parts I wanted to be fat, which parts I wanted to be thin. I also start getting the idea here to have a sort of mix of greenish and bluish tinged skin, because I wanted to sort of take inspiration from both G1 and G3, and also sort of keep it away from just being plain green. Here I wanted to sort of auto-generate the facial features by blindly scrolling through Pick-Crew and picking with my eyes closed, and I also wanted to compare it to Frankenstein's monster's design, obviously, as well, from the 1931 film. So I went with a sort of crooked nose and one eye that's larger than the other, as well as the thin straight lips that are mentioned in the original novel. Then I wanted to sort of play around with the elements from Victor's lab coat as well. I also here am just sort of brushing out some different palettes for what their skin tone could be. The book describes Adam's skin as being yellowish or mummy brown, but I wanted to take it more towards green simply because it's more recognizable in the modern day interpretation of Frankenstein's monster. So here I'm just blocking out some black hair with white stripes because iconic and also relevant to the bride's hair as well. Then here I was just sketching out the figure based on the different blocked out stitches that I have in the sketches here, so I can do my thumbnailing of the different designs, because I also wanted to do sort of that iterative design process that I did in my Claudine redesign video, because I really liked where it took my design capabilities. It really made me sort of think instead of just going with the first thing that came to my mind of what can I take inspiration from here, what parts do I like, what parts don't I like. So then I'm just looking at my reference pictures again, and the reference picture there is my battle jacket, because I wanted to take some inspiration from Crust Punk, so they have a lot of sort of patches and pins stitched all over their outfits, because I thought, you know, it makes sense for their theme and all. Once again, checking with my references here to get those sort of yellowy eyes with the heterochromia from G1, but sort of like washed out so that the colors aren't super like as distinct as they would be had I drawn them otherwise, because the book describes them as being watery and sort of monochromatic. I want to take inspiration from the novel as well as from the Universal Studios movie. So here's my first design. That is a blazer on top and a long flowing dress underneath. Very clear in its inspiration, very sort of heavy-handed in my opinion as well. For my second design here, it's more heavily based on Victor's lab coat with the turtleneck and the flowing skirt and the high waistline with the slicked back hair. For the third design here was looking at my inspiration once more, and I wanted to really sort of blend everything together. So I have the deep neckline. I wanted to play around with some corsetry, but then I changed my mind because I thought it didn't really quite look right. So I instead ended up drawing a little bit of a harness here. And I wanted to play around with hair texture for this one as well, since the bride has that really thick textured hair. So I have a really sort of sharp, squarish headline here, or hair shape here, as well as one high boot and one low boot with a sort of lab coat and or just like plaid skirt, very similar to G1. For this next design, I wanted to take it sort of more inspiration towards 1931 Hollywood, with sort of a more elegant, swoopy dress, but still taking elements of like masculinity with, you know, pants underneath and sort of like a chain belt to add some sharpness to the design. I also wanted to sort of play around on the next one with more really pushing that idea of having sharp angles in parts and soft angles in others, or soft curves I should say. So I have one sleeve here that's like a poof sleeve and one that is sort of like a really sharp shoulder pad. Wanted to play around with long hair on this one too, but I go with short hair on a lot of these designs since Adam, Victor, and the bride all have, you know, pretty short hair, so I thought it'd be more fitting design-wise for them to have short hair. So then here I'm just writing out what my favorite part from each of these designs were before I put them all together and sort of synthesize all the ideas that I had during this brainstorming session. This design session took about an hour of time, and the coloring only took about 2 hours, which is definitely the fastest that I've done one of these, since I was kind of under a grind since I'm working on some other projects that you'll be seeing soon. So I also got the idea here to have their harness be also attached, or not attached, but sort of like in the same palette to weave that like leather strapping throughout their outfit for them to have an arm and a leg brace, because I thought it would be, you know, a good synthesis of both representation and also ideas from G3 and just thematically appropriate as well. You know, helps keep their stitches from breaking, keeps it in place, makes their limbs a little stronger, because, you know, in my version where it's sort of different mismatched body types, I can imagine that also lends some more instability. So I wanted that to sort of pull in more detail in the arms and the bodies, because I really like putting a lot of detail into my fashion designs, but I feel like that also can lead to the body being obscured, whereas here I definitely want it to be something that is visible, since that's where a lot of the design work is put in, and I also wanted their disability to be visible as well. So here for their skirt, it is a mixture of plaid and sort of a lab coat. You may notice I changed the hair because I wanted it to be sort of a blend between the sharp and the soft, and the very sharp angular hair was really just leading it, like really just sort of clashing with the more soft lines instead of being a contrast. So I decided to have it be mostly soft, very textured hair, but with a couple of sort of lightning bolt frizzes sticking out here and there. So here I'm just doing out my color blocking. Wanted to have some mismatched nail polish, obviously, because classic. It would obviously do that. Here's that leather harness I was talking about, and the arm brace. I also wanted them to have sort of a battle vest, but instead of being sort of out of denim, I had the idea of it being sort of a cut from a blazer to call back to the 1931 movie. Franks, and here I'm putting a green background on just so I can see what I'm doing, coloring in the whites here. I wanted them to have a button-up shirt that has a sweetheart neckline cut out, both because that allows for the Y-stitch to be shown, and the button-up lends more to that sort of academia look, because I wanted them to have influence from dark academia and punk, and just sort of like a little tiny speck of steampunk in there. And I also wanted to throw in some chains around the legs, as well as a lot of metal details throughout their outfit, such as the rivets here on their boots, and stitches on the other one there as well, just to sort of pull through those same colors, because I definitely wanted their palette to be a little bit more restrictive, of mostly black and white with hints of a very natural leather color, and metal with just shocks of green here and there, because again, I really want them to be sort of the focus. I don't want their clothes to outshine them the same way that they would on, say, Claudine, someone who is very fashion oriented, because I imagine Frankie obviously has a sense of style, but I think they're also very sort of playful in their looks and not really caring specifically about like wanting to look perfect. I think they're just there to have fun. For their earrings, they have a spiked cuff with a lightning bolt earring, and here I am filling out some of the patches. I wanted there to be a test tube pin and a lightning bolt pin, and then for the flags, we're going with pan, non-binary, gender fluid. I'm putting in some more here. This one is representative of any pronouns because I always thought they would use rolling pronouns using they, them right now, since that's what established in current G3 canon, just so it's consistent. But in my version, he would use anything. She'd be fine with whatever. He, she, it, they, sie, them, anything. I also put a German flag on there since I always really want to pull back to the original source of these creatures for a lot of these redesigns, and this one would be the novel. I also put an autistic pin and the disability trans pin, or patch. I also had a little note there saying to play with glasses, but I ended up sketching them out, and I thought they just sort of busied the face a little bit too much since there's already a lot going on there. Another sort of mismatch thing here, besides the makeup, is I wanted there to be freckles on one side, but not on the other. Just doing sort of a very simple, but very fun look of sort of lightning bolt black and white makeup, since, again, I didn't want it to be anything too very makeup oriented, because, again, I don't think they'd be, a makeup guru or anything like that. They're 15 days old, they're just there to have fun and play around. So I don't think they have a sort of distinct sense of style just yet. So I definitely wanted to take a lot of different influences in my design. Their background that I'm using here is just of an office building, and that I thought looked a little bit like sort of Mad Science Lab, but here I'm just erasing the cutouts from their shoes, so it really sort of pops that that's a cutout there. Then I decided to also put in the background this medical library that I went to once in the basement of a hospital, and sort of make those background a mismatch just the way they are. So my one crit here is I think the background turned out a little bit too bright and cluttered, but I'm not really sure what else I would have gone with, to be fair. But maybe retrospect, maybe in a few months or so I'll think like, oh, this would be the perfect picture to use here. So here I'm just going ahead and shading. Wanted to make sure I got those bolts on their neck, because obviously definitely wanted to pull in metal on their outfit everywhere I could, from the bolts to the stitches to the rivets to the metal on their braces. For their sleeves, I decided to do one that was sort of more of a shoulder pad and one that was sort of a puff sleeve with a lantern sleeve length, whereas the shoulder pad is very short in length because I wanted to have that sort of contrast throughout their outfit of it being very mismatched. I also wanted to have them have, the glove that attaches to the arm brace on the one side, sort of be sort of a white patent vinyl to really sell that sort of mad science look and to match the white of their skirt. I'm overall very happy with how this turned out. I think it's very cohesive, and the limited color palette definitely made it go a lot faster than it usually does. I think I might try to do it more often, but we'll see. I simply love to use very bright colors, but it was fun sort of experimenting with really holding myself back here a little bit instead of just throwing every color of the rainbow on a piece while still keeping it really, really vibrant like I love to do. So just putting on a little bit of finishing sparkle here, really making the design pop. I'm very excited to continue this series. Hopefully sometime next June will probably be the next video, since I have something planned for May already. Deuce is going to be the winner next. I held a poll on my Instagram, so make sure to follow me there. So here is the final design. I'm very happy with how this turned out. I love the sort of mismatched element. I love how there's a lot of things that are clashing, but I think they work really cohesively here. And I think this outfit is also very sort of character focused. I feel like this is a design where you can look at the character and get an idea of like, oh, okay, this is a Frankenstein's monster who is new to the world and mismatched and here to have fun. Like, I feel like it's very character oriented. And here's a comparison between the 3 generations in my design. Definitely took a lot of inspiration from G2 and a little bit, or G1 and a little bit from G3, but I also really honestly like how G2 styled sort of G1's idea, so I definitely pulled in, the metal, the plaid, sort of combining a lot of the different elements from these 3 generations, because I think they're all turned out pretty well, but I also wanted to take it in my own direction of being a little bit more directly inspired and a little bit more sharp. I am definitely very happy that it's turned out. I think this would be a little bit more replicable, aside from maybe the different colors on the body, than some of my other redesigns. on doll scale. But yeah, thanks for watching my video, and be sure to follow me on my Twitter or my Instagram to see more art. Bye!